Okay, so the other day we highlighted a lot of what I think are the problems surrounding Google and the Pixel lineup altogether. And if you watched it, see, a lot of people who didn't watch the video immediately snapped in the comments and say, how could you say don't buy a Pixel? I'd never say don't buy a Pixel. The Pixel products are, I love my Pixel. Nobody was saying that. I was not saying that there was a problem with the Pixel hardware itself. There have been in the past, the Pixel 6, a prime example. But recently, if you go back and watch my videos, the Pixel 8 Pro and the Pixel 8a, I am high on. I was very complimentary of those devices because I do think they are good, and Google, kind of hardware-wise, has certainly got its act together. But marketing-wise and lineup-wise, it couldn't be further from that. So let's talk about we talked about the problem, but we're not negative here. You know, we want to offer a solution. You're the part of the problem, you're part of the solution. So we want to pitch in and lend a hand here to Google, because I think there are two options that you could come up with the A series that would save the A series and kind of save these awkward conflicts that you have every year with the previous generation of Pixel devices, not even previous generation, the current generation of Pixel devices releasing with an A series device. The first one is this. You could release all of them at the same time. OnePlus did it. Apple does it. You can have where all of your phones for that year come out at once. All of the slab ones. You know, Samsung has a Galaxy season in January, but then they have the foldables later on in the summer and stuff like that. That's fine. What I'm talking about is that you have, let's take the 9, for example. You'll have a 9, a 9 Pro, and a 9A. Now, if you're releasing them at the same time, you can't keep this trend of having the latest processor in the A series, because it wouldn't make sense at that point, right? You'd be cannibalizing and kind of eating into the sales of the Pixel 9 if you put the same. It's kind of reversed, right? The tables would be turned. You'd have the 9A eating into sales of the 9 if you could get all the power and performance of the 9 in just kind of a cheaper packaging, but get it for less money right at the start. That would be beneficial to an A series device. So they really can't do that, because that would be kind of awkward. What they can do is this. OnePlus did it this year with the 12R. You can offer last year's processor in that device. So you'd have the 9 and the 9 Pro featuring a Tensor 4, and you'd have the 9A featuring the Tensor 3. Now, you could do stuff where you make it a little fancy. You could do like we had with the Snapdragon Plus in mid-year, where you kind of have like a Tensor 2 Plus or something like that with optimizations or overclocking. There are ways you can sell it. That's why you have marketing teams, Google. So you could come up with ways to kind of make it fancy and refresh it and repackage it. But that might be something, because then the price gap makes more sense. There's a reason why you'd buy each of the devices. You'd buy the Pro because you want all the camera stuff and all the performance and the extra RAM and all the rest of it. You buy the Pixel 9 because you want a lot of the optimizations of the software. You want the Tensor 4. You want the new processor. You want a lot of the features and creature comforts of the Pixel 9 Pro, but you want to spend a little bit less. And then you have the 9A. That gives you that option that you can have the Pixel features, you can have the feature drops, you can have the AI stuff and all that stuff, but it's getting it in a plastic package, and you're spending less money because it's last year's processor or an upgrade of last year's processor. That, to me, makes sense. The 12R was brilliant because it gave you a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, all the trimmings for $500. They could pull off something similar if they do the entire lineup at once. The other thing, if they want to keep this kind of mid-year release cycle, they can do that. But they have to go back to the original theory behind the A series. The original A, the Pixel 3a, launched at $399. It was incredibly competitive. But they had a marketing strategy there. They had a direction for the Pixel 3a. If you remember, all the kind of advertising focused around the fact that you could get that Pixel camera and the computational photography that everybody loves for $399. You no longer had to spend $800. You no longer had to spend $1,000. $399 gets you a Pixel camera. It wasn't about Tensor. It wasn't about power. It wasn't about being a flagship killer. It was about that camera. And that made sense, and it worked. That was a clear direction for the device. The company was sitting there telling you, this is why you spend this on this. So if they were to go back to that, bring out an A series at $399, Give it, last year's processor. I know Google's in a weird spot because they can't just pick another Snapdragon that's further down the line like other manufacturers. They can't go out there and say, well, I'll put a 7 series Snapdragon in there or a Snapdragon 7 Gen 1 or something like that. They don't really have it down the line. They kind of have to make do with older Tensors or, like I said, Tensor Plus or some sort of budget way to introduce Tensor into another device. But that's something that they could do. So you give it the plastic build. You give it an all-plastic build if you want, like the original 3A. You could give it the whatever, but have something extra there. You're getting the clean Pixel software experience. You're getting Material U. You're getting the live translate. Whatever you could put in there, the Pixel features now playing, all the rest of it, call translation, the call thing where you could, the call assistant where you're sitting there instead of automated calls, it punches through for you or whatever to get to a human. All that stuff you can have. But put it in a package that's $399. Because then you're going to avoid, as we hit the camera, we get very excited speaking about Google stuff. We hit the camera a lot. Because then you're going to avoid all this nonsense. You're going to avoid people like, whoa, why would I buy a Pixel 8a when I could just buy a Pixel 8 cheap? Or why would I buy a Pixel when I get another? You're going to avoid all of that because the gap is always going to be at least $250, if not more. And a $250 gap, like you see with Samsung with the A55, A54, all the rest of it, you get some leeway there. There isn't the immediate comparison between the flagship, the lower end flagship, and the higher end mid range. There isn't that natural wow, there's a $50 gap between these devices. Why wouldn't I consider the one or whatever over the other? You don't have that if they're $250 apart. So that device gets to shine on its own. That's the problem. The Pixel 8 doesn't get to shine on its own. It was immediately smothered by comparisons to the Pixel 8 because Google did that by having the price at $550 for so long. It's marketing. It's nothing to do. And that's why when the comment section was like, "Oh, I love my Pixel." What are you talking about? It's nothing to do with the products themselves. If you buy one, it's fine, good. But don't sit there and I wrote an article for Android Police, it released yesterday, kind of going over the same topic. And the guy's like, "Well, I've seen a huge increase." But what do you mean? Pixel sales are doubling, tripling from 1%. Yes, it's easy to double from 1 to 2 to 3 or whatever it is. But you're not talking 10s and 20% like the big boys. So don't give me that. Don't tell me they don't need help or they know what they're doing. They don't. It's either the phones are secondary or something like that, or they're worried about AI, or there's enough of those freaking features, or whatever it happens to be. It seems like the phones and hardware take a backseat, which is a shame. And that's why I'm frustrated. I don't come to this as a hater. I don't come to this as someone that wishes Pixel weren't around. I come to this as someone who wishes these devices were as competitive as they could be. Because this device is fantastic on the Pixel 8 Pro. This device is very good for the money and the power and the support and the build, all the rest of it for $500 in the Pixel 8a. But that never gets a chance to shine through because Google can't get out of its own way. That's what we're saying. So take a lesson, take a marketing 101, go to night school, whatever you have to do to figure this out because you got plenty of examples out in the marketplace of companies doing this. It's not like you got to reinvent the wheel. Release them all at once or make this a completely different category that separates from the flagship end. Get back to what you were doing with the 3A or release them all at the same time and nerf the processor here for the price. And then you will have 3 distinct products that all have reason to exist at the same time at the prices they do. Not that hard, but apparently it is. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.